The dinner rush had just begun when Evelyn walked into the restaurant, tying her apron with practiced motions. The air smelled of grilled rosemary chicken and polished wood, but her mind was far away, on overdue bills, long bus rides, and the heaviness of a life that never seemed to let her rest. Still, she greeted every table with warmth. Her voice was steady, her steps light. It was how she survived. At the far corner, the VIP section glittered with wealth. Gold watches, designer suits, women wearing diamonds that sparkled even in low candlelight. In the center of it all sat Mr. Charles Harrington. Everyone in the city knew his name. Money, power, influence, and the cold kind of confidence that only comes from believing you are untouchable. Evelyn approached with a polite smile, balancing a tray of wine glasses. He watched her as if she were part of the decor, an object, not a person. His friends laughed loudly at some joke as she placed their drinks, but his eyes stayed on her, studying her like a curiosity. "So tell me," he said suddenly, his voice smooth but laced with something sharp. "How long have you been working here?" "A little over a year, sir," she replied, her tone professional. He leaned back, swirling his glass. "You speak well, surprising." The table chuckled. Her chest tightened, but she kept her eyes calm. She had heard worse. Then he pointed with a careless flick toward the old upright piano in the corner, dusty but still polished for decoration. "I heard people like you have natural rhythm." His friend smirked. "Why don't you go play something for us?" "You must know how." The words landed like a slap. The restaurant was suddenly too quiet. Other diners pretending not to listen but very clearly watching. Evelyn froze. Her mother's face flashed in her mind. Soft eyes, gentle hands guiding hers across piano keys in a small living room with peeling paint, but so much love. But that was before the hospital bills, before loss swallowed music whole, before Evelyn had to trade her songs for survival. She looked at Harrington, at the smug tilt of his mouth. This wasn't admiration. It was a performance for his amusement, a trap meant to belittle. Her throat tightened. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to walk away. But she needed the job. One wrong move and the manager would replace her without hesitation. So she forced her feet to move, slowly, with the weight of memories pressing on her shoulders. The room quieted as she approached the piano, its lacquer reflecting her trembling fingers. She sat down, exhaling shakily. Harrington leaned forward, smirk widening, as if waiting for her to embarrass herself. Evelyn placed her hands on the keys. The room held its breath. At first, her fingers barely brushed the keys, producing a fragile, uncertain sound. Her heart hammered so loudly she could feel it in her fingertips. She closed her eyes, trying to remember. Not the instructions, not the theory, but the feeling. The tiny apartment where sunlight spilled over her mother's shoulder as she played. The soft humming. The laughter. The sense that the world, even if it was unfair, still had places where beauty could live. Her hands began to move on their own. A slow melody unfolded, gentle and trembling like something waking from a long sleep. Then it deepened, gathering strength. Each note seemed to echo with an ache that had lived inside her for years. Grief she never had time to express. Dreams she packed away so she could work double shifts. Hope she kept quiet because life rarely rewarded those who hoped. The sound spread through the restaurant like warm light. Conversations dimmed. Forks stilled midair. Even glasses stopped halfway to lips. It wasn't just music. It was a confession, a cry, a memory poured into sound. Evelyn's shoulders loosened. Her breathing steadied. The keys no longer felt foreign. They felt like home. Harrington's guests looked at one another, confused at first, then slowly captivated. Their laughter faded into silence. Their smug expressions melted into awe. Something inside the melody tugged at them. Something raw and familiar, even if they couldn't name it. Harrington himself leaned forward, elbow slipping slightly off the table. His smirk dissolved. He hadn't expected this. He thought she would fumble, stutter, embarrass herself. He thought she would remain small where he could keep her, but the music refused to be small. The melody rose higher, swirling into something powerful. It sounded like standing in the rain after a storm has passed, like not giving up, even when giving up felt easier. It sounded like a girl holding her mother's hand for the last time. It sounded like a promise to keep living. Tears pricked Evelyn's eyes, but she kept playing, fingers steady now, guided by love instead of fear. The keys vibrated under her touch, each note ringing clear and full of truth. She played until her chest felt lighter, until the weight she carried every day lifted just a little. And when the final chord finally settled into silence, the room didn't move. For a heartbeat, it was as if time itself had stopped to listen. Then chairs shifted. People stood. Applause exploded like thunder rolling through the space. Cheers rose. Some even whistled. Others blinked away tears they didn't understand. Evelyn sat there, breathing hard, overwhelmed, her hands still resting gently on the keys, like she was afraid to let go of the moment that had just given her back a piece of herself. The applause crashed over her like a wave she hadn't expected. Evelyn blinked, startled as if waking from a dream she wasn't ready to leave. Her chest rose and fell, her breaths uneven. She wiped at her cheeks quickly, hoping no one noticed the tears. But of course they had. The emotion in that room was thick enough to touch. Mr. Harrington remained seated while everyone around him stood. He didn't clap at first. He couldn't. His face had gone pale. The arrogance drained from him. He looked like a man who had opened a door expecting a joke and instead found a cathedral. When he finally stood, it was slow and uncertain. He walked toward her, each step heavy, the sound of the applause fading around him as if the world were narrowing to just the two of them. The smirk he wore earlier was gone, now replaced by something he didn't even understand yet. Humility. Where did you learn to play like that? He asked, his voice quieter than anyone had ever heard from him. Evelyn lifted her eyes to his. There was no anger in them, no triumph, just truth. "My mother taught me," she said softly. "Music was the only thing we had that made us feel whole." Harrington's jaw worked like he wanted to say something, an apology, a justification, anything. But the words wouldn't come. His eyes flickered, searching for a way to make this right, to erase what he had revealed about himself. He reached for his wallet. "I'd like to offer you—" Evelyn stood up before he could finish, closing the piano lid with gentle finality. "No," she said. The word wasn't sharp. It was steady, strong, a boundary drawn without bitterness, just certainty. He froze. She continued, her voice clear enough for everyone close enough to hear. "You don't get to disrespect someone and then try to fix it with money. My music, my talent, it's not here to entertain your pride." There was no applause now, just silence, heavy, honest. For the first time in his life, Harrington seemed small, not because he had lost anything, but because he had finally seen the mirror held up to him. He lowered his wallet slowly, his gaze falling. And in that moment, he looked like a man realizing he had never truly known what wealth was. Evelyn stepped away from the piano, walking back toward the kitchen with calm, measured steps. But this time, heads turned to watch her, not because she was a server, but because she was unforgettable. And the applause rose again, not loud and cheering, but deep, warm, sustained. The kind that didn't celebrate performance, but dignity. Harrington sat back down at his table, the wine in front of him untouched. He stared at his hands, listening to the echo of the music in his memory, and knew that some moments mark you forever. And Evelyn, with her chin lifted and shoulders steady, returned to work, carrying with her the quiet power of someone who remembered exactly who she was.